The sun was shining brightly that afternoon, casting a warm glow over the quiet neighborhood. Birds chirped in the trees and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. On the corner of Maple Street, a young boy around 10 years old was busy riding his bike. He had just learned a new trick and was excited to try it over and over. The boy's small yard was neatly kept, with grass freshly cut and flowers blooming along the edges. He loved being outside, feeling the wind in his hair and the freedom to ride his bike without a care in the world. Across the street lived a woman in her 50s. She was known among the neighbors as strict and easily irritated. Her house was large and well-maintained, with a white picket fence that she took great pride in. Many of the neighbors gave her space, knowing she could be quick to anger. On this particular day, she was sitting on her porch, frowning as she watched the boy play. She muttered to herself, complaining about how kids never respected boundaries these days. The boy had been careful to stay within his yard, far from the woman's property line, but that didn't seem to matter to her. She suddenly stood up, her face red with frustration, and started shouting at him from across the street. Her voice was sharp and commanding, cutting through the peaceful sounds of the afternoon. The boy froze, unsure of what he had done wrong. He tried to explain that he hadn't crossed onto her property, but she wasn't listening. Her anger seemed to grow with every word he said. Before the boy could react, she stormed closer and, in a shocking moment, slapped him across the face. The boy stumbled back, completely stunned. His cheek burned and tears immediately welled up in his eyes. He had never been treated like this by an adult before, and the sudden pain and humiliation overwhelmed him. He felt a mixture of fear, confusion, and sadness all at once. The neighbors who happened to be walking by paused, shocked at what had just happened, but no one stepped forward. The woman's anger seemed so strong that people didn't want to get involved. The boy ran inside his house, his small legs moving as fast as they could carry him. He burst through the front door, tears streaming down his face. In the kitchen, his mother was preparing dinner, chopping vegetables and humming softly to herself. She turned when she saw him, immediately noticing his red cheek and the scared look in his eyes. She dropped the knife she was using and knelt down to embrace him, her arms wrapping tightly around his trembling body. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He could only shake his head and point toward the window, indicating what had happened outside. His mother's expression shifted from concern to quiet anger. She gently wiped away his tears and whispered that it wasn't his fault. She told him to take a deep breath and calm down while she went to handle the situation. Without hesitation, she stepped outside, her eyes fixed on the neighbor who was still standing near her porch, arms crossed, a look of defiance on her face. The mother walked steadily toward her, keeping her voice calm but firm. She asked why her son had been hit and demanded an explanation. The woman muttered something about respect and kids these days, but her words lacked sincerity and did nothing to excuse her actions. The tension between them was thick, and the other neighbors had started to gather, curious and concerned about what was unfolding. The mother remained composed, refusing to escalate the situation. She knew that showing anger in return would only worsen things. Instead, she focused on documenting the incident. She took out her phone and snapped pictures of her son's cheek, the surrounding area, and even the position of the neighbor's fence. She knew it was important to have evidence, not out of revenge, but to ensure justice was served and her child would be protected. As she stood there, she also reassured her son, who had come back outside to stay close to her. She told him that he had done nothing wrong and that she would make sure the right steps were taken. The boy clung to her hand, feeling a mix of fear and relief. He had been so scared moments ago, but seeing his mother so strong and composed gave him a sense of safety he hadn't felt since the slap. The neighbors who had gathered whispered among themselves, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Many of them had witnessed the incident and could see the truth of what had happened. They admired the mother's calmness and her determination to handle the situation properly. It was clear to everyone present that she was not just protecting her child, but also setting an example for the neighborhood about how to deal with conflict in a responsible way. The boy watched his mother, trying to understand how she could remain so calm in the face of such blatant aggression. He realized that her strength wasn't about shouting or fighting back. It was about standing firm, protecting those she loved, and making sure that justice would be done. Even though he was still shaken, he felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this moment wouldn't just be a painful memory, but also a lesson in courage and integrity. As the sun continued to shine, casting long shadows across the street, the mother finally turned back to her son. She knelt down, looked him in the eyes, and told him that everything would be okay. She explained that adults sometimes make mistakes and some people act out of anger, but what mattered most was how they responded. She promised him that she would take care of everything, and that he should focus on feeling safe and loved. The boy nodded slowly, still feeling the sting on his cheek, but comforted by the presence of his mother. The two of them walked back toward their house together, hand in hand, while the neighbors continued to watch, silently acknowledging the mother's courage and the boy's resilience. It was a moment that would stay with the boy forever, a memory of fear, pain, but also of love, protection, and the power of standing up for what is right. After the initial shock of the incident, the boy's mother felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. She was angry, yes, but more than that, she was determined. She refused to let fear or anger control her actions. She knew that the most important thing was to protect her son and make sure he felt safe. She took a deep breath and started to plan her next steps. The woman who had slapped her son needed to be held accountable, but it had to be done in a way that was fair and calm, showing the boy that justice didn't come from yelling or revenge, but from standing strong with truth on your side. The boy stayed close to his mother, still trembling slightly from the sudden violence. He looked up at her with wide eyes full of trust and dependence. She knelt down to his level, brushing his hair away from his face and speaking in a soft, steady voice. She explained that what had happened was not his fault, and that he had nothing to be ashamed of. She reminded him that sometimes people act unfairly or out of anger, but that didn't mean he had done anything wrong. Her words were simple, yet they carried a weight of truth and reassurance that helped the boy begin to calm down. The mother decided to go directly to the neighbor to speak more seriously about what had happened. She stepped outside again, holding her son's hand firmly. The neighbor was still standing on her porch, arms crossed, her face set in stubborn defiance. Other neighbors had gathered now, drawn by the commotion, whispering quietly among themselves. Some looked concerned, some curious, and a few shook their heads in disapproval. The boy's mother felt the eyes of the community, but she ignored them. She focused only on what mattered, addressing the injustice and protecting her son. She approached the neighbor calmly but with determination in her voice. She asked again why her son had been slapped, and explained that his behavior had been completely appropriate. The neighbor tried to mumble excuses about disrespect and kids today, but her words lacked credibility. The mother didn't let herself be distracted or angered by the neighbor's defensiveness. Instead, she remained composed, showing that she was in control and that she would not be intimidated. Knowing that verbal confrontation alone might not be enough, the mother decided to document everything. She carefully took photographs of the scene, showing her son's cheek and the area where the incident had occurred. She even captured the position of the neighbor's fence to provide clear context. She knew that having evidence was crucial if the situation escalated. It wasn't about punishment. It was about ensuring her son's safety and making sure that the neighbor understood the seriousness of her actions. The boy stayed close to his mother, still shaken but starting to feel a sense of security. He watched as she handled the situation with calm authority, and he began to understand something important about strength. It wasn't about hitting back or shouting louder. Strength was about standing firm, protecting those you love, and making sure the right actions were taken. Seeing his mother act in this way planted a seed of understanding in his young mind about courage, fairness, and responsibility. The other neighbors continued to watch, their expressions a mix of admiration and concern. Many had witnessed the incident and could see that the mother's approach was thoughtful and controlled. They began to whisper to one another about how unusual it was to see someone handle such a situation without letting emotions take over. Some even began to feel grateful for the example being set, recognizing that the boy was being protected not just physically, but emotionally as well. After a while, the mother called her son over and spoke to him directly. She explained that the next step would involve contacting the local authorities. She wanted to make sure the situation was addressed formally, so that her son and other children in the neighborhood would be safe. The boy listened carefully, still processing everything that had happened. He felt nervous at the thought of involving the police, but his mother reassured him that it was the right thing to do. She emphasized that this was not about getting revenge, but about making sure everyone understood that hitting a child was unacceptable. As they waited for the authorities to arrive, the mother took the time to comfort her son. She held him close, talking softly about how proud she was of him for staying calm and for trusting her. She explained that difficult situations sometimes arise in life, but facing them with honesty and courage could lead to positive change. The boy began to feel a sense of hope, realizing that even though the incident had been frightening, it could become a moment of learning and growth. When the authorities arrived, the mother calmly explained the situation, presenting the evidence she had gathered. She described exactly what had happened step by step and showed the photographs she had taken. The officers listened carefully, asking questions to ensure they understood the full context. The neighbor tried to argue her case, claiming the boy had provoked her, but the witnesses from the neighborhood spoke up, confirming the mother's version of events. The boy watched as the truth unfolded, feeling a mixture of relief and pride in his mother's careful handling of the situation. Throughout the entire process, the mother remained composed. She answered every question honestly and provided the officers with all the information they needed. She made sure her son felt safe by staying close to him, holding his hand and speaking reassuringly whenever he seemed anxious. The boy began to realize that even in the face of injustice and fear, there could be calm, strength, and fairness. After the police left, the mother sat down with her son in the quiet of their living room. She explained that the incident would be officially documented and that the neighbor would be held accountable for her actions. She reassured him that she would continue to protect him and that he had nothing to fear. The boy felt a growing sense of security, knowing that his mother was not only his protector but also a strong figure who could stand up to unfairness without losing control. In the following days, the boy began to talk more openly about what had happened. He shared his feelings with his mother, expressing sadness, fear, and even confusion. She listened patiently, validating his emotions and helping him understand that it was normal to feel upset after such an experience. She reminded him that what had happened did not define him and that he could choose how to respond in the future. Her words provided comfort and guidance, helping him process the event in a healthy and constructive way. The community also began to show their support. Neighbors expressed admiration for the mother's calm and effective handling of the situation. Some offered words of encouragement to the boy, praising his bravery in staying calm despite being slapped. Others reflected on how they might handle similar situations in the future, inspired by the example set by the mother. The incident became a quiet but powerful reminder to the neighborhood that standing up for what is right, especially when protecting children, is a responsibility everyone shares. Through this experience, the boy learned valuable lessons about trust, courage, and the importance of remaining calm under pressure. He saw firsthand how strength could be expressed through composure, intelligence, and careful action, rather than through anger or retaliation. He also began to understand the importance of speaking up, documenting events, and seeking help when faced with unfair treatment. His mother's actions provided a living example of integrity and care, shaping the way he would think about justice and responsibility in the years to come. By the time the sun set that evening, casting a warm glow across the neighborhood, the boy felt a sense of calm returning. He knew that the day had been difficult, and that the memory of being slapped would not disappear overnight. But he also felt empowered by the support of his mother and the community. He had witnessed a strong and fair response to wrongdoing, and that gave him a sense of hope and security. It was a lesson he would carry with him for the rest of his life, a reminder that courage, calmness, and truth are powerful tools when facing challenges. The next morning, the boy woke up feeling a mixture of relief and lingering anxiety. He remembered the events of the previous day, and the pain from the slap still stung slightly. But he also felt a growing sense of safety knowing his mother had handled everything calmly and wisely. He went to the kitchen where his mother was preparing breakfast. She smiled gently at him, noticing the slight tension in his shoulders, and reassured him that everything was going to be okay. She reminded him that sometimes difficult things happen, but facing them with honesty and calmness was the best way to protect oneself and others. After breakfast, the mother decided it was time to take further action. She wanted to ensure that the incident was officially addressed so that her son and other children in the neighborhood would be safe. She explained to her son that they would be going to the local authorities to report the incident. The boy felt nervous at the thought, but he trusted his mother and knew she would guide him through it. She reminded him that reporting the incident was not about punishing anyone out of anger. It was about making sure that fairness and justice were upheld. When they arrived at the local police station, the mother calmly explained the situation to the officers on duty. She described the events in detail, from the boy riding his bike in his yard to the neighbor's sudden outburst and the slap. She also showed the photographs she had taken, capturing the boy's red cheek and the layout of the yard and fence. The officers listened carefully, asking questions to make sure they understood the context and the sequence of events. The mother answered each question patiently, never raising her voice or showing anger, only conveying the truth clearly and calmly. The neighbor had also arrived at the station, claiming that the boy had provoked her in some way. However, the mother's documentation and the accounts from witnesses in the neighborhood made it clear that the boy had done nothing wrong. Several neighbors were called in to provide their statements. They confirmed that the boy had stayed within his yard and that the neighbor had acted aggressively without justification. Hearing the witnesses, the officers began to understand the full truth of the situation. Through all of this, the mother remained composed, holding her son's hand and speaking reassuringly whenever he seemed nervous. She explained that it was important to stay calm and honest, even when others were trying to create confusion or excuse bad behavior. The boy began to absorb these lessons, seeing firsthand how integrity and calmness could make a difference in resolving conflict. After the formal statements were taken, the officers informed the mother that the incident would be officially documented and investigated. They assured her that appropriate measures would be taken to ensure that her son and other children in the neighborhood would be safe. The boy felt a mix of relief and pride. He realized that speaking the truth, having evidence, and standing up calmly could lead to positive outcomes, even in situations that felt scary and unfair. On the way home, the mother and son talked about the importance of fairness, respect, and standing up for oneself in safe and responsible ways. She emphasized that strength wasn't about reacting with anger or violence, but about taking the right steps to protect oneself and others. She told him that difficult experiences could teach important lessons if approached thoughtfully, and that he had already shown courage by staying calm and trusting her guidance. Back at home, the mother focused on helping her son process the emotional impact of the incident. They spent time together, talking about his feelings and acknowledging the fear and sadness he had experienced. She reassured him that it was normal to feel upset after such an event and encouraged him to express his emotions openly. The boy felt comforted by his mother's attention and understanding, realizing that his feelings were valid and important. Over the next few days, the mother continued to monitor the situation closely. She stayed in touch with the authorities, ensuring that the investigation was proceeding fairly. She also spoke with neighbors, some of whom had witnessed the incident, and encouraged them to share their accounts if needed. The boy saw the dedication and care his mother put into making sure justice was served, and he began to understand the power of responsibility and careful action. As the days passed, the boy started to regain his confidence. He returned to playing outside, cautiously at first, but gradually with more comfort and freedom. His mother reminded him to stay aware of his surroundings and to always seek help if he felt unsafe. But she also encouraged him to enjoy his childhood and not let the incident define him. The boy began to feel a sense of normalcy returning, bolstered by his mother's guidance and the support of the community. The neighbor, meanwhile, faced increasing pressure from the authorities and the community. Her actions had been documented and witnessed, leaving little room for excuses. The mother's calm, methodical approach had ensured that the neighbor could not avoid accountability. This realization seemed to shake the neighbor, and she became noticeably quieter and more reserved when interacting with the boy and his family. The mother did not seek to humiliate her, but she did make it clear that inappropriate behavior toward children would not be tolerated. Throughout this process, the boy's mother continued to teach him important lessons about empathy, fairness, and resilience. She explained that sometimes people make mistakes or act out of fear, frustration, or ignorance, but that responding with understanding and integrity was the best way to navigate life's challenges. The boy began to internalize these lessons, seeing how strength, calmness, and truth could shape positive outcomes and protect those he cared about. The incident also sparked conversations within the neighborhood about respect and accountability. Neighbors discussed the importance of protecting children and addressing conflicts constructively. The boy's mother became a quiet example of how to handle difficult situations with dignity and fairness. Her actions inspired others to think carefully about how they responded to challenges, and how they supported the younger members of the community. By the end of the week, the boy felt more secure and understood that he had been supported fully by his mother and the community. He recognized the importance of standing up for oneself in safe, responsible ways and the value of trust, honesty, and calmness. The incident, while initially frightening, became a powerful lesson in courage, fairness, and the impact of careful, thoughtful action. The mother continued to guide her son, reinforcing the lessons of integrity and resilience. She reminded him that life would present challenges, but that facing them with calmness and truth was the most effective and honorable path. The boy, growing in confidence and understanding, began to feel that even difficult experiences could be transformed into opportunities for growth, learning, and strength. He realized that his mother's example was one of the most important guides he would ever have, showing him how to navigate the world with courage, fairness, and a compassionate heart. As the days passed, the incident continued to ripple through the neighborhood. People talked quietly in their yards and on their porches, sharing what they had seen and discussing the mother's calm and determined response. The boy's mother continued to handle the situation with quiet dignity, never showing anger but making sure everyone knew that hitting a child was unacceptable. She checked in regularly with the authorities, ensuring that the investigation was moving forward and that proper steps were being taken to protect her son. The boy was slowly returning to his normal routine. He still felt a little nervous outside, especially when passing the neighbor's house, but the presence and support of his mother made him feel safer. She encouraged him to play and ride his bike, reminding him that the world was mostly a good place and that there were many people who cared about him and wanted to see him grow up happy and safe. Gradually, he started to laugh again, feeling the joy of being a child without the weight of fear. Then something surprising happened. The boy's mother, who had always been active in her community, reminded people that she had recently been elected mayor of the town. Her position gave her a platform, not only to ensure justice in this particular incident, but also to promote respect, fairness, and community values more broadly. Many neighbors who had not known this were impressed by her ability to manage the situation calmly and effectively while holding a position of leadership. It was a quiet but powerful revelation, showing that leadership and responsibility could be demonstrated in both big and small ways. Word spread quickly, and the neighborhood began to rally around the boy and his mother. People expressed support, sharing stories of their own experiences and praising the mother for her integrity and strength. Some neighbors reached out to apologize for not stepping in sooner, saying they had been unsure how to act. The mother accepted their support graciously, emphasizing that the important thing was now to ensure a safe and respectful environment for all children in the community. The boy watched all of this unfold with a mixture of awe and pride. He realized that his mother's calm and steady actions were making a real difference, not only for him but for everyone around them. Her ability to navigate the situation without losing control inspired him. He began to see that courage could be quiet and firm, that strength could be expressed through careful, thoughtful actions rather than anger or force. The neighbor, who had slapped the boy, began to feel the pressure of the community and the authorities. Her actions were being documented, and the support for the boy and his mother was clear and unwavering. She could no longer ignore the consequences of her behavior. Slowly, she became more reserved, less confrontational, and more aware that her actions had real implications. The boy's mother did not seek to humiliate her, but she made it clear that inappropriate actions toward children would not be tolerated. During this time, the mother also took the opportunity to speak publicly about the incident. She addressed a community meeting, explaining the events calmly and clearly. She emphasized the importance of respect, accountability, and protecting children. She shared lessons about handling conflict thoughtfully, about standing up for what is right, and about showing empathy even when others make mistakes. Her words resonated with the community, inspiring them to reflect on their own actions and attitudes. The boy was present during some of these discussions. He listened carefully to his mother, feeling proud of her leadership and wisdom. He began to understand that her actions were shaping not only his safety and confidence, but also the culture of the neighborhood. He realized that one person's courage and integrity could influence many others, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the initial incident. As the investigation continued, the authorities worked to ensure that the neighbor was held accountable. The mother made sure that the process remained fair and just, emphasizing that the goal was not punishment for its own sake, but teaching responsibility and ensuring the safety of all children. The boy learned from this example, seeing that true justice involves fairness, patience, and a focus on the greater good. Meanwhile, the neighborhood began to feel a shift. People were more conscious of their actions and words, especially around children. Parents felt encouraged to speak up for their kids, and children felt safer knowing that adults were paying attention and willing to act responsibly. The incident had become a turning point, demonstrating that respect and accountability were not just ideals but practical principles that could be enforced through calm, thoughtful leadership. The boy's mother also used her position as mayor to introduce small initiatives aimed at building community respect and understanding. She organized neighborhood meetings and activities that encouraged communication, empathy, and cooperation. She wanted children and adults alike to learn how to resolve conflicts peacefully and how to support one another. The boy helped in small ways, assisting with preparations and observing the interactions, slowly learning how leadership and community involvement worked. Over time, the boy regained his full confidence. He played outside freely again, riding his bike and laughing with friends. He knew that while not every situation in life would be easy, he had a model of courage and integrity in his mother to guide him. He also understood that standing up for oneself and others required careful thought and honesty, not anger or retaliation. The neighbor, recognizing the impact of her actions, began to show small signs of change. She participated in community activities and followed the guidance set by the mother and authorities. While she would need time to fully rebuild trust, the initial steps were being made. The boy observed these changes and felt a sense of closure, knowing that his safety and dignity had been acknowledged and defended. The incident left a lasting impression on the community. People spoke of the mother's calm strength and the boy's resilience. They reflected on the importance of handling conflicts thoughtfully and of protecting the most vulnerable members of society. The boy and his mother became quiet symbols of courage, fairness, and integrity, showing that even in difficult circumstances, positive change was possible. By the end of this period, the boy had grown in understanding, confidence, and resilience. He had seen how courage could be expressed through calm, thoughtful action, how leadership could be demonstrated in both small and significant ways, and how justice could be pursued without anger or hostility. His mother had not only protected him, but had also shaped the neighborhood's approach to respect, fairness, and community responsibility. The boy realized that life's challenges could become opportunities for growth, learning, and positive influence when faced with integrity and care. Time passed, and the neighborhood slowly returned to a sense of normalcy, but the events of that afternoon remained in everyone's memory. The boy had grown stronger and more confident, guided by the lessons he had learned from his mother. He knew that courage could take many forms, and that standing up for oneself did not always mean fighting or shouting. Sometimes the greatest strength came from calm, thoughtful action and the support of people who cared. His mother continued to be a pillar of guidance and protection. She made sure that her son's emotional needs were addressed, taking time each day to talk about his feelings and experiences. She emphasized that it was okay to feel fear or sadness after difficult situations, but that those feelings could be managed with the right support and perspective. The boy began to understand the importance of emotional intelligence, realizing that understanding and expressing feelings was a key part of navigating life's challenges. The neighbor who had slapped the boy had begun to show small signs of change. While it was clear that rebuilding trust would take time, the consequences of her actions had been acknowledged, and she had started participating in community activities designed to promote understanding and respect. The boy's mother encouraged this participation, not as a form of punishment, but as a way to help her understand the impact of her behavior and to learn how to act responsibly in the future. The boy observed these changes carefully, feeling a sense of closure and recognizing that people could learn from their mistakes. The boy's confidence continued to grow as he returned to playing outside with his friends. He rode his bike, laughed, and explored the neighborhood with a newfound sense of security. He knew that his mother was there to protect him, but he also began to understand that he could take steps to ensure his own safety and well-being. He learned to be aware of his surroundings and to seek help when needed, understanding that asking for support was a sign of strength, not weakness. At school, the boy shared his experiences with trusted teachers and friends in a careful way. helping others understand the importance of standing up against unfair treatment and supporting one another. He became more empathetic and thoughtful, recognizing that people could act out of fear or frustration, but that there were always ways to respond calmly and effectively. His experiences had given him insight into human behavior, resilience, and the power of community. The mother continued to use her position as mayor to create initiatives that promoted respect and empathy within the neighborhood. She organized activities that encouraged children and adults to communicate, cooperate, and support one another. She emphasized the importance of accountability, teaching that actions have consequences, but also that people can learn and grow from their mistakes. The boy participated in these activities, gaining first-hand experience in leadership and community involvement, and learning valuable lessons about responsibility, fairness, and compassion. Over time, the community began to feel stronger and more united. The incident had sparked conversations about respect, accountability, and protecting the most vulnerable members of society. People were more aware of their actions and words, especially around children, and parents felt encouraged to speak up for their kids. The boy's mother had become a quiet but powerful symbol of courage, integrity, and leadership, showing that one person's actions could positively influence an entire community. The boy continued to reflect on the lessons he had learned. He understood that life would present challenges and that some people might act unfairly or aggressively. But he also realized that courage, calmness, and honesty were powerful tools that could help navigate difficult situations. He had seen his mother handle adversity with grace and strength, and that example shaped his understanding of justice, responsibility, and compassion. As months went by, the boy's relationship with his mother grew even stronger. He admired her wisdom and her ability to balance firmness with empathy. She continued to teach him that every action had meaning, and that thoughtful, responsible behavior could inspire positive change. He carried these lessons into his daily life, becoming more confident, empathetic, and aware of the impact of his choices. The neighborhood remained supportive, and the incident became a reminder of the importance of protecting children and addressing conflicts constructively. The boy's mother continued to guide the community, emphasizing that leadership was not just about holding a position, but about setting an example, promoting fairness, and encouraging empathy. The boy saw firsthand how one person's integrity and courage could influence many others and create a ripple effect of positive change. Through these experiences, the boy learned the value of resilience. He understood that setbacks and challenges were a part of life, but that they could be overcome with courage, support, and thoughtful action. He also learned that forgiveness and understanding were important, allowing people to grow and learn from their mistakes. The neighbor's gradual change became a lesson in accountability and the potential for personal growth. By the time another year passed, the boy had grown more independent, confident, and socially aware. He enjoyed playing outside, interacting with his friends, and participating in community activities. He had a strong sense of justice, empathy, and responsibility, all guided by the lessons his mother had taught him. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, but he felt prepared to face them with courage and integrity. The mother continued to balance her role as a parent and mayor, leading with fairness and empathy while ensuring that her son was supported and safe. Her actions had a lasting impact on the neighborhood, inspiring people to be more thoughtful, respectful, and protective of children. The boy understood that the strength his mother showed was not only about authority, but about care, patience, and the ability to influence positive change through calm and deliberate action. In the end, the boy learned that true courage was not measured by physical strength or aggression, but by the ability to face challenges, support others, and act with honesty and integrity. He had witnessed the power of calm leadership, the importance of community support, and the value of standing up for what was right. These lessons stayed with him, shaping the person he would become and guiding his choices in life. The neighborhood grew closer, the community stronger, and the boy more confident, resilient, and compassionate. He knew that life would always have obstacles, but he also knew that with courage, integrity, and the support of those who care, challenges could be met and overcome. The incident, once a source of fear and pain, had become a story of growth, learning, and lasting positive change, leaving both the boy and the community better and wiser than before.